Good evening, guys. Welcome to the stream. Hope everybody is doing well. So I've got some hands, as always, and what I'm hoping is to make this a more regular thing on a Tuesday and a Thursday at 6 o'clock. So 60 minutes at 6. Study session where we go through some marked hands from the from Sunday's session. So if you're new to the stream, I stream on a Sunday off-peak schedule, starts at 10 a.m. UK time, and just go through until I bust the last tournament. And in that session, I will mark a series of hands and then hope to go through them on Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock in this 60 minutes at 6 session. So yeah, we're going to go through. It's got 4 hands. I've run them in Pio, so we'll have a look. And if you guys have any questions, then just let me know, and I'm happy to answer them. Jack Rag on Twitch says, "Hey, how's it going? Good to see you here." So let's go straight into it. So we're going to start with this King 6 off hand. This is actually a hand that we started to go through in Tuesday's stream, but yeah, I'd failed miserably in running the sim correctly. So we quickly aborted mission and moved on to the next hand. So we're going to revisit it today. Fingers crossed I've saved the right sim. But anyway, we limp. Big blind ISOs only to 3x. I think you often see like 3.2, 3.5 in this spot, but we have a pretty easy call. I think we can call more hands here because he's only made it 3x rather than 3.5. But yeah, we have an easy call. We check villain bets, and yeah, this is where the hand should end, right? Because it's quite obviously not a continue in this spot. But yeah, as I said on Tuesday, it wouldn't make a very fun stream if the hand just ended here. You know, what's the point in me showing you this hand? So I decided to call. We have backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw. I mean, backdoor straight draw is always pushing it a bit out of position. But yeah, I don't think this is a thing. We are going to have to look at it in the solver. But I think, you know, maybe we get to defend King 6 off with the King of Hearts, but I don't think we get to defend this hand. So yeah, it's in there because I wasn't happy with the way that I played it, and I want to see, like, you know, in these situations where ranges are so wide, we don't want to be over folding, but we also don't want to be like calling too frequently. So we want to see where that line is. Where do we get to, you know, call, and where's the folding line? So that's what we're going to do. We check, and then he bets 8 bigs, and now we've got a flush draw and a gut shot. So we call again, completely brick, and then he bets, and we fold. Okay. So really, what I'm going to be focusing on is the flop, like to work out where exactly that line is. So here's the spot. He bets 300. First of all, let's just have a look at King 6 off with the 6 of Hearts. You can see bottom right hand corner of the grid. Yeah, it's just a fold, right? So we can't continue with King 6 off even with the 6 of Hearts, but we can continue if we have King 6 off with the King of Hearts. So I do think that's a huge takeaway. Maybe you guys are already like not continuing with King 6 off. You know, clearly not as much of a station as me in this spot. Although, you know, when I was playing it, I was like, something doesn't feel right here. Like, I'm not sure that, like, I know that I don't want to overfold here, but I think this is probably pushing it a little bit too far. Jack Rag on Twitch saying, how much do you limp there? Quite a lot. Now you can, I mean, these are the hands that I limp call, right, that you can see on screen now. In fact, if I just do out of position range, so you can see that I'm going to be limping a ton of suited hands and then calling them. I might raise some of these as well. I mean, to be honest, I'm probably not like playing this perfectly, like exactly like this solution. This is obviously from GTO preflop solutions, but I'm playing somewhere close to this where I would be raising the top, also be limp raising some of the other hands as well that you can't see here. So we are definitely weighted towards sort of offsuit stuff and then suited stuff over here. But we folded garbage, and we folded this garbage down here. So basically what we want to know is where does the line, where is that line for us? So king six off with the six of hearts, 37.9% equity. I guess we want to have a look at some weakish draws. Let's have a quick look at Jack 9 off. So Jack 9 off, always continuing, 2 overs and a gut shot. Let's look at the equity on that. It is when, you know, it's a lot more. So I guess like king 6 off with the king of hearts is 39. I'm not sure what other hands we could get to. Jack 10 of spades, if we had it, 45.5. Yeah, it looks like we're continuing all of the Jack 10. So 2 overs and a gut shot. So it looks to be pretty good in this spot. Yeah, I think the best way to probably look at it is going through each hand really quickly through here. So sets we're going to continue. I guess the best thing is to go like, okay, what sort of nothing hands are we going to continue in this spot? So you can see here like 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw is fine. So the mistake I made here was not the fact that we had a backdoor flush draw and calling with it. It's the fact that we just have 1 overcard rather than 2, right? So if we look at the equity, I think it's pretty interesting that Queen Jack off with a heart, like even like Queen of Diamonds, Jack of Hearts has 37.7% equity. King 6 off with a heart has 37.9, right? So that's pretty close, and yet one's a call and one's a fold. If we go to equity realization, King 6 off, even with a heart, minus 0.159. If we go to Queen Jack, let's have a look. Yeah, so the equity realization is much better for a hand like Queen Jack with a heart than it is for King 6 off. So it's not just about equity; it's about equity realization as well. So yeah, I think that's a pretty big takeaway. We don't want to be folding too much, but the nothing type hands is going to be overs with a backdoor flush draw. I think is going to be reasonably good. Queen 9 off with a heart here looks pretty speculative, I would say. Yeah, I mean, if we look at EV, yeah, I mean, it's not great. Like Queen of Diamonds, 9 of Hearts there is it's not a great call, and you can see actually some folding going on as well with those hands. A little bit of folding, which means the EV of all options is going to be, you know, close to 0. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions about any of this, then feel free to post it in the chat. So I guess like king highs, what are we looking for? Yeah, so 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw again. Having that heart is quite important. Same with king 9 off, and then once we get down to king 6 and king 5, we really need to have the king of hearts, and even then, like, it's pushing it, right? So we're definitely overdoing it with king 6 off with the 6 of hearts. Ace highs, ace 9 plus looks like a good call, and then any of these other ones, we're going to need to have a flush draw or a backdoor flush draw to continue. So I think that's a pretty big takeaway. Let's have a look. Questions on Twitch. Mumbai Biogoa. What's the difference between equity and equity realization? So equity is how likely it is that hand wins, right now. Equity realization is how often that actual hand gets to realize that equity. So for example, Queen Jack off is probably going to turn more cards on. It's going to turn more cards that you get to continue on than a hand like King 6 off is. And then obviously, like, sometimes you just run into a better hand as well. And the guy raised, so he's got a lot of stronger King X hands on the turn too. So there's definitely something to look at. But it's a great question, and I think that's the biggest takeaway here is understanding the difference between equity and equity realization. Jack Rag, is Pio the only kind of tool that will give you an idea of equity realization? That's a good question. I think it probably is, because when you run reports in Pio, you get to have the equity realization stat, and you can run a report about it, and you can see that, you know, a hand like King Queen suited is going to do better at realizing equity than a hand like King Deuce off. So I actually wrote an article about this for Poker News. Check it out, pokernews.com. It's on, if you click on strategy, I think it's on there. I also made a video as well going through equity realization, showing how some hands are better than others, and how some software sort of doesn't take it into account when it's giving you a pre-flop solution, so therefore it can't can't be the right answer. Okay. Evolution Retro Gaming says, "Evening, Gareth. Good evening. What's villain c-bet strategy again?" So this is what the Pio solution looks like. You can see it's a little bit, mainly going for the big bet, but sometimes going for this smaller bet as well. Let's go back to what we were talking about. We're really just trying to find okay, how do we defend here? This is the biggest learning point, not the fact that I butchered it, and not even the turn play. It's the flop. Where do we draw the line? So we said backdoor flush, like ace 9 plus, and then need to have a backdoor flush draw to continue. It looks like again like ace 4 off with a 4 of hearts. That's not going to be good enough. Same with ace deuce off with the deuce of hearts. Benjamin 96. Does that mean your hand has to get to showdown to realize your equity? I mean, not necessarily, because sometimes you get to over-realize by getting someone to fold. Let's have a look at some other ones. Low pairs, calling, third pairs. Okay, so low pair plus, and then when it comes to unpaired hands, we really need to have some kind of, 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw and a hand that is going to do better at realizing equity than, just one heart and a very low card. You're going to see that combo draws are going to call, flush draws are going to call, 8 out straight draws are going to call, 4 out straight draws are going to call. So it's quite easy to work on the draws. If you have a draw, you call. If you have low pair plus, you call. So you have any piece of the board, you call, and then where you're going to find the defends from the rest of it is within hands where you have 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw, or you have these ace-x ones with the sort of backdoor nut flush draw, or flush draws, obvious one. But then the queen highs I think were the really interesting ones here. I mean, Jack 10, Jack 9, 10 9. They have draws to go with having 2 overs. Okay. I missed a few follows, so let's have a quick look here. Lemonic, Demonade, Damn White AT, thanks for the follow, guys, on Twitch. So I'm streaming on both Twitch and YouTube right now. Up to you where you want to watch. But thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. So pretty big takeaways there. So low pair plus, all the draws, and then hands that you believe are going to do better at realizing equity, where you're going to turn, a little bit more equity and be able to continue more frequently on turns, and also not just be completely crushed when you, when you bink. Shout out to Jerry Poker 1 for the follow. I guess we should just carry it on, even though our hand is not going to get to the turn. We should see if what happens. So he goes ahead and bets 8. Okay. So big mistake on the flop and a big mistake on the turn as well. So you can see that there's a little bit of a bar. Which if I can do this, you can see this little bit of the bar, right? This is just how much of this particular hand gets to this particular juncture, this street, for this line. Now you can see there's nothing king 6 off. Like my hand here shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be called, right? But if we happen to get there, you can see that it's a fold again. So 2 mistakes already in this hand, and pretty costly as well. I mean, let's just have a quick look at the EV. Yeah, so calling here minus 185. So this will be done in big blinds. So almost minus 2 big blinds. It's just such a big mistake, and I'm sure you guys aren't making that. So definitely learn from my mistakes, but don't do that. So I guess let's just round it out. Like what are we supposed to be calling now? Let's start with the draws. So we start folding some weak gut shots. Pair plus a draw continues. These are pair plus draws. We're going to continue with those, and then start folding like 6x. That seems good. And then even some of these hands look to be quite low EV. Anytime you start seeing some folds in there, you probably want to consider just letting it go. Okay, and 8 out straight draws. We're actually going to start folding some of those now as well. 9-5 and 6-4. A bit of ace 9 in there too. But continuing again, so we're wanting to have like a pair and a draw now versus this double barrel. Flush draws, we don't fold too many. It looks like ace 5 off with the 5 of hearts wants to fold, but if you have the ace of hearts, you can potentially play it a bit more aggressively. Combo draws just being played very aggressively, a little bit of folding with ace 6 off with the 6 of hearts. But again, if we normalize this, yeah, there's not too much ace of diamonds, 6 of hearts coming through to this street. So yeah, there's not not too much of that to worry about. Shout out to Chris714N for the follow on Twitch. Lemonic Demonade, thanks for the content. You're welcome. Thanks for being here, checking out the stream. Okay, yeah, so we do actually start folding some draws. We're out of position, and we if we call and we get there on the river, like with our straight draws, we could still already be behind. If we improve to a flush, then we could lose to a better flush, or we just don't get paid. So we check and they check back a lot of the time on the river. So there's just like the implied odds aren't there either. And apologies if you can hear some fireworks going on. It's bonfire night here in the UK, which means I just recorded a podcast with Trisha, Poker on the Mind. Check it out if you haven't heard of it before. And apparently Americans don't know what bonfire night is, and I tried to explain it and realized how ridiculous it is that we celebrate that. But yeah, check out the history of bonfire night. I'll save that for the podcast. Okay, so we've done all of that. Nothing type hands are gonna we start to see some. These are really just combo draws, right? Yeah. So the combo draws are being played quite aggressively, I would say, in this spot, which is amazing to see. King highs looks to be a lot of folding now, but continuing again with straight draw. These are combo draws once again. Ace highs, decent amount of folding. Continuing with ace high and a 9. Check raising ace 9 off with the ace of hearts. Low pairs starting to fold. Third pairs starting to fold, unless you just have a little bit more to go with it. So for example, like this Jack 7 is third pair, but it also has a gut shot and an overcard as well. Shout out to Bertie21 for the follow on Twitch. And yeah, so where's the line now? So second pair we're starting to fold as well. Again, we want to have some sort of draw to go with it, but I guess a decent amount of this 8x here is going to have a heart in it. Certainly king 8 off with the king of hearts, queen 8 off with a heart. Yeah, jack 8 off. I mean, again, jack 8 has a pair plus a gut shot, and then sometimes a flush draw as well. So there's lots going on for that. Top pairs never folding, and then none of these other ones will fold. If top pair's not folding, then these ones won't fold either. But yeah, so I would say overall, it's important to know where to draw the line, but also not to then compound the error by making a mistake on the turn as well. Cool. Let's move on to the next hand. Okay, we open with 7s, big blind defends, check. We bet small on this board. Think that's fine. Due to hearts, absolute blank, and the big blind decides to lead, which I don't think is a thing. It's definitely not a card that you'd expect him to lead on. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on here. But I think we just have a pretty easy call. I don't think we raise much. Then we improve to a straight on the river. He goes for a bet. And yeah, I think this is a decision point now about where do we we obviously have a straight. We have a value hand. But if we jam here, because I don't think we get another raise size. I mean, I don't really want to be making it like 14 or 15 big blinds in this spot. Then so when we jam here, does he call with enough worse hands, right? So obviously he can have Jack 7 and Queen Jack for sure, that can beat us. Those hands are always going to call. Any other random 7 is going to call as well. But we don't beat any of those hands. So when we jam here, is he going to call with a hand like, I don't know, 10-8, 10-9, 8-6, stuff like that? And I think the answer is probably no. The problem is here that he's taken a really weird line to lead the turn that I don't, we'll see in the solver in a minute. I don't think the solver leads this turn. It's just not a thing. So we're down like a branch of the game tree that shouldn't be happening. Then we could start, going down the whole like, okay, well let's ignore the solver then because it's pointless. We've gone down like a 0.13% branch. Like there's no, what's the point? But we'll still use the solver. Like we can, it can still give us some ideas. Yeah. So when we jam here, like, are we getting value from enough hands? That's the real question, I would say here. So I think it's yeah. I'm just looking at some of the chat. Jack Rag on Twitch. Do you think flop has 2 bet sizes? We'll have a look at that in a minute in the solver. Shout out to Folds in the chat and Alex NFFC for the follow on Twitch. Yeah, so we'll look at that in a minute, Jack Rag. This is a spot that I run into quite often. Benjamin says, okay. Hattie on Twitch, you heavily block him having a 7 though. Probably call 2 pair plus to a jam. I think going for all in is the best play. Yeah, and I think the solver's going to agree, right, that we should jam here. But if in practice he starts folding, maybe he folds 2 pair, or he's supposed to call with like some random 10, then we're suddenly not getting value from enough hands, and we end up like value owning ourselves. So I think it's an interesting spot, and like I said, I think the solver's probably just going to jam, but we'll have a look at what the solver's calling and see if we agree with that as a group. Okay, Benjamin, I was going to say what happens if you don't make the straight on the river. Hattie on Twitch, think his calling range will be quite inelastic here. Well, I mean, the thing with elasticity is based really on bet size, right? So, like, if we click it, right, we just go for a min raise. There's more chance that he calls with 2 pair. If we jam, maybe he starts thinking about folding 2 pair, but we'll see. Jack Rag, think if you have over pairs, you bet bigger. Yeah, we're gonna, as I said, we'll have a look at this in the solver now. Will M. Perry on Twitch saying, my first thought was pocket 2s, but not sure how realistic it is. I think he calls there, though. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, we bet on the flop, right? I don't think pocket 2s... Does pocket 2s call here? Not sure. But then, I guess, yeah, if he has pocket 2s, then he has a hand that's, pretty high up in his range, I would say. But he's also gone down a branch of the game tree, as I said. He's gone for this line that doesn't really make a ton of sense. Hattie 009, what is the buy-in? 3-3 down, never fold, 2 pair. Okay, that's good. What's the buy-in? 27, so it must be the bigger 27 from Sunday. Okay, let's just really quickly before we see the solver then. Do you guys call 2 pair on this river? So you call flop and then you lead turn and then you land on this river and you bet and then you get jammed on. How many of you are calling with like 10-8 and 9-8? Let me know in the chat really quickly. Shout out to DevilDom999 for the follow and ShadowBV09 as well. Thanks guys for checking out the stream and for following. Okay, so we've got some votes for call. We've also got would fold 2 pair. So there's definitely not like a clear answer here. So let's go and have a look at the solver. 2 of hearts, 6 of diamonds. I wonder where I can write that down to remember. Let's go into here. Okay, so this just make sure this is definitely the spot. 10 of spades, 9 of diamonds, 8 of spades. Quick comments on Twitch then before we go through this. There's no way you shove anything but a straight on this board with these stack sizes. Okay, so you're probably going to fold 2 pair then. Hattie, I may call 2 pair here as lots of bluffs possible. If you're the big blind, the point of betting river is to fold to a raise, I guess. If I think to call with 2 pair, I would go to check call. Okay, no, I'd fold 2 pair on the river with 10-8. So maybe a lot more folds happening. So yeah, the reason why I marked it in game was I was unsure as to whether or not, like in practice, we can actually jam for value. I know the solver, like, I haven't looked at it, but I'm pretty sure the solver is going to say to jam because we have a straight, right? And it's not like it's the, I mean, it is the bottom. I was going to say, like, it's not like it isn't the bottom, but it is the bottom. But he can still have some better straights. So yeah. Anyway, Evolution saying some players are capable of folding even sets on this river. However, there are some players who are stations and call very wide. Yeah. So I guess if we know our opponent, we know that they're going to be, you know, somewhat loose for calling. Then we can go for a jam and be a lot happier about that. Cool. Okay, so firstly, I did give out of position the option to lead here, but you can see no leadings going on, and that's mainly because in position has this huge equity advantage. And I would imagine nuts as well, but let's have a quick look. If we just look at 2 pair plus, in position 12%, this is what we're looking here, this proportion here 12%, and then out of position is 9.5. So even though out of position has a lot of these 2 pair and straight hands that we don't have, as a proportion of their whole overall range, we actually still have a nut advantage here. So they don't do any leading. The question from Jack before was whether or not we have 2 bet sizes, and it looks like there's a little bit of big betting going on here. So this is the geometric sizing to be able to bet equal sizes on all 3 streets, but mainly just going for the small sizing, which is what I chose, like quarter pot here. I think small bets should be scaled. So like the deeper you are, the small bet should be slightly bigger, and the shallower you are, so if you're playing like 20 big blinds deep, that small bet can be a min bet. And so we had, I can't even remember now, pocket sevens, and there's a little bit of big betting going on, but mainly small. And he calls, and it was a deuce of hearts on the turn. Let's just check. Yeah, it was the deuce of hearts, and you can see there's no leading going on here. So this is something that I was, you know, very confused. Like, why is he suddenly starting to lead here? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Something that I've been working on, and we're working on this month in the MTT Game Changer group, is which turn cards are going to be good for the out of position player to lead. This isn't going to be one of them. Before I show you what the answer is, can anyone guess as to which cards on the turn are going to give the out of position player the highest equity? Mehdi on YouTube saying that he's shoving in hero spot with the pocket sevens. Cool, so it's another vote for the aggressive line. Benjamin on Twitch saying sets are brutal on this board, but what bluffs do you have when you jam river? So I guess you might have to fold a set. In general, I don't think the player pools are bluffing enough on the river. Okay. So we'll see like what we're supposed to bluff on this river. You know, is it going to be a hand like Queen 8, for example, that blocks the nuts, and maybe blocks some of his calling range as well? But if we think that he's suddenly going to start folding 10-8, we don't want to block 10-8. But if we think he's going to call 10-8, then we want to block 10-8 and we want to block Queen Jack, which are, you know, very easy calls for him. Okay, so Hattie, Jack and a 7 going to be higher equity cards for out of position. 7 would be a good card for out of position. Mumba says. Pedro saying 6 and a 5. No votes for pairing the board though, an 8, 9 or a 10, which I think is interesting. Evolution saying I would imagine 8 or 9 would be good for big blind. Okay, good, we got there in the end. So yeah, let's have a look at equities. So 6 and a 7, very high equity. 8 and 9 and 10, not as much as maybe, you know, on other boards where the board pairs. And ace is really, really bad for the out of position player. Jack though is also pretty good. This is all relative, right? Because there's only a few percent in it compared to other cards. But you are, you know, this is where you want to look to see if there's some leading going on. So let's have a look. So you can see that on a 6, 7, 8, and 9, those are the cards that are getting led most frequently. Interestingly, a Jack is not, even though the equity for the out of position player was reasonable. But yeah, mostly on a 6, 7, 8, and 9. And just to show you, like 2, 3, 4, and 5, absolutely no leading whatsoever. Pretty blank cards. So Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we're looking at the moment in MTT Game Changer. Out of position turns strategy as the pre-flop caller. So when you defended the big blind, you're facing a double barrel, or even before you even get there, like in this spot when we're trying to work out, okay, which cards can we start leading on the turn. So if you're interested in that, I'll just post a really quick message in the chat. If you want to join us for MTT Game Changer, then I'll post a link to it. I know that definitely a few of you have already done that in the last few days, so shout out to you guys. So yeah, there's a link now in both the chats on Twitch and on YouTube if you want to check it out. Yeah, as I said, we're doing turn strategy out of position, so sort of 2 bits to it. We did the theory session on Monday, and next Monday we're going to do deep dives into leading the turn, so looking at which cards are good and also what does our strategy look like, which hands do we actually lead. Is it going to be draws? Is it going to be like top pair? Is it going to be when we actually have it? And then the following deep dive is going to look at when we're facing a C-bet, when they bet big, when they bet small, how often we need to continue, what kind of hands we need to continue, what are the sort of the fundamentals to think about in those spots. Okay, Benjamin's saying interesting chart to look at. It definitely is, for sure. Lots of checks even on good cards. Yeah, I think you'll see that there are some boards where like there's loads of leading, especially on the card that pairs the board. But yeah, there's not a lot in this spot, which is pretty interesting. Jack Rag said, just joined, looking forward to it. Excellent stuff, and welcome to Game Changer as well. Okay, so they decide to lead, and like I said, this is like a line that's not one that we go down very often. Sevens actually does a little bit of raising here, but mainly goes for the call. And finally, the river, of course, was a 6. And yeah, they bet this 600 sizing, which is not happening too often, mainly going for this 75% pot. There is some jamming going on here as well. It looks like 1.5, 1.6x pot. So yeah, they went for this 600, and as you can see, any 7 is just going to go for a raise. But let's now have a look at what our opponent is supposed to call in this spot. And again, yeah, it's easier to do it on here. The problem is we've got this like 0 combos, so we're they don't have them because it's not a line they should be taking. So take it somewhat with a pinch of salt, but like we still can kind of visualize maybe some hands that we're supposed to call here. Like to be honest, like if they have ace 10 and king 10, I don't think they're calling with those ever. So yeah, I mean the straight's always going to call. Looks like a set's always supposed to call. 2 pairs folding sometimes. Looks like 9-8, 8-6, stuff like that. But 10-8 is supposed to call, but it shouldn't be getting to the river to this line. And then there's some top pairs that are getting called 44%, folding 56. I think these are probably folding 100% of the time. Second pair now is just going for a fold. Everything else is just going for a fold. So I think we do lose to some of these straights. We lose, well, I mean, there's no Jack 7 in there, but I guess maybe that gets raised on the flop. But we chop with most of these and lose to Jack 7. I suppose there's no Queen Jack in there as well. Maybe that gets raised on the flop too. So yeah, it's not. I would say if we're trying to get called by basically 2 pair and top pair, and 55% of those hands fold, and actually I think probably 100% of these hands fold, then yeah, I don't think we can jam the river for value. I'm happy to sort of argue that point. But yeah, that's I think it's an interesting spot. Now, if it let's say it was a spot where we looked at the solver and it's definitely a line that the solver takes, and it gets to the river and it's calling with all the 2 pairs, then I can get behind jamming for value. Shadow BV09 on Twitch saying, what is it? MTT Game Changer Plus offer. And then he said, sorry, I found now on the site. Yeah, okay. All the information should be on there. If you have any other questions about it, happy to answer them. Yeah, just let me know. So yeah, I think it's an interesting spot. Yeah, interesting. So if the guy bets bigger on the river, so goes for this like 3/4 pot, 10-7 all of a sudden doesn't jam for value, right? So that's kind of telling me something that, it's not a case of like, you always get to jam a 7 for value here. But as like, as also I've said here, like this is a line that's just not being taken very often. And yeah, just very, very unusual. So I did just call. Yeah, I'm still quite happy with that. I don't think we get value from enough hands. I don't think 2-pair calls often enough. He ends up having ace jack, and yeah, I don't think. Well, we know it's not a thing because it's not supposed to lead. But let's just play the hand through as if it goes like it should have done. You can see that we are supposed to double barrel reasonably frequently. 7 diamonds, 7 of clubs is what we had, and that hand doesn't double barrel as often. So let's just say we go for a check back. 6 of diamonds comes, and ace jack off now for him is going for a 3/4 pot bet. And I think at this, like, this is interesting now, right? Because we actually are supposed to do some raising, but not jamming against this line. So we go for a raise. Now, if he decides to jam, we call. But like, what does population like jam in this spot that we beat? Literally it's 7x that we chop with, and then some queen jack and some jack 7s, right? That we lose to. So that would be a really funky spot. And like how, let's say that, yeah, this happens, they bet, we raise. How often do you think a 7 rips this river as a 3-bet? Like, we've played the hand, we could definitely have queen jack in our range, right? I guess it's, we don't have as much like jack 7 as, or we don't have any jack 7. I don't think, do we? No. Oh yeah, we do actually start the hand with jack 7. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we do have some jack 7 suited, but we don't have jack 7 off that maybe he does. So yeah, it's this is an interesting one. But cool. Let's move on to the next hand. Okay, so this hand actually comes from the home game, which we have on a Monday after the webinar. So the webinars for Game Changer are always on a Monday. They start at 7 o'clock UK time, and afterwards we go straight into a home game and do a Zoom call. And just, if you want to grab a beer, you get to grab a beer and just have some fun. So like it's like a home game, but online and on a Zoom call. Shout out to Poker Vicar for the follow. Devil Dom, not sure if I saw your follow, but thanks very much. So this is some of the Motley crew, some of the Game Changer members, and so we raise in early position, and the button flats. Really quickly then, guys, what do you think? Like, I often encourage players when they're reviewing hands to do this, and to literally just go, right, 100 big blinds deep, middle position versus button, on a 7-5-3 two-tone or flush draw board, depending on how you want to describe it. What's your overall strategy? Hit me in the chat now with what you're doing in this spot. Okay, so we've got check raise, big, we've got range betting small. Okay. We've got third pot bet. Okay, so a bit of a mix, I would say, between checking and betting. One of the things I would look at here in trying to work out what we should be doing in this spot is thinking about, okay, who's got equity advantage here? And on these low boards, I would say that equity is going to run pretty close together. And then who's got nut advantage, right? So we're probably not opening 3s, but he's definitely flatting 3s and 5s and 7s, probably at full frequency. Do we open 5s at some frequency? But I would say the button in this spot has a 100% sets. Can have 6-4s suited. We don't open 6-4 suited. They can have 7-5 suited, I think. We don't have 7-5 suited. So there are a decent number of nut hands that the button's going to have, right? So, I mean, when you're out of position, equities do tend to run a lot closer together. When you're playing against the big blinds, you are often going to find you have, a huge equity advantage on lots of boards. Low boards that are, connected, less so, I would say. But out of position, equity is going to run pretty close together. Sometimes the in position player is still going to have an equity advantage, which means as the pre-flop raiser out of position, you're going to have to do a lot of checking. And I think in this spot, given that the equity is probably going to run close together, and we have an obvious nut disadvantage, that we're probably supposed to check this a lot of the time. Let's have a look at some of the comments in Twitch. Evolution saying high checking frequency. Northy Cab raised 60% of the pot. Hattie betting best and worst flush draws, checking middle flush draws. Button will be Broadway and pair heavy. Check 100% and go for a check raise, Benjamin says. Okay, and Medi on YouTube saying bet 3/4 pot. Cool. Okay, so I just went for a check and button checks back. So the reason I marked this one is because I was unsure about whether or not we get to bet the turn now. So we're obviously way ahead of like King Queen, King Jack, Jack 10, hands like that. But then hands like Ace Queen, Ace Jack, and Ace 10. I suppose we should show what we had again. We can now potentially get to fold, right? So I just wanted to see if like maybe this is a spot where we get to do that. But we check and button checks back, and then 3 on the river. We check again and button checks back. So like it's not a very interesting hand the way that it played out, but I think it's potentially a good spot to see, what sort of hands are we going to bluff. I mean, on this river, I think we're going to have a decent number of like non-ace high hands that we're going to try and target like him to fold, right? Because this hand is going to chop with a lot of ace X that the button can have. Whereas if we have, I don't know, Jack 10 or Queen 9 suited, then if we bet big enough, we can make those hands indifferent, and they're being a tough spot. But then I guess we have this question of what sort of value hands do we play in that way? Like, are we really gonna check ace 7 twice and then on the river just bomb it and try to get him to hero us off with, I don't know, ace queen? Like, I'm not. Yeah, I just don't know if that's gonna be a thing. Jack Rag on Twitch. In $10 games I play, c-betting works so often here. Okay. Shadow BV, I think I would have bet the turn and get myself into a nasty spot when called. Hattie, I don't think betting would get an ace to fold river here. Okay, here's a question for you. What's the biggest bet size that I could make here that if you're sitting in Paddy's shoes here in the button, that you would fold an ace? Like, would I have to bet like 2x pot, 3x pot, 4x pot? What do you reckon? So Shadow on Twitch saying 2x pot, I probably fold an ace here. Okay. So I think it's going to be, it's interesting because, we definitely want to make sure we've got some value bets in there so that, ace high is going to be indifferent on the river. Hattie, 2x pot at least. You don't have any overpairs here. You might check 7-7 hoping for action. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. 1.1x pot. Medi on YouTube says Willem Perry says 1.5x pot, maybe 2x. Benjamin, I feel like I bet too often here on the turn, any more than pot, and I fold. Okay, cool. Let's have a look at the solution and see what it says. 753. Okay, so this is us. I mean, this looks very much like a spot where I didn't give out of position the option to bet, but you can see that there is a small bet, which is 30% pot, and a geometric sizing, which is close to pot, just over pot. So none of those is used, and we can see that it's pure check in this spot. Shout out to Zappa6 Tangy for the follow. Let's have a look at equities. So equities run really close together. In position has just a ever so slight advantage. And if we look at 2 pair plus, out of position, we have, some sets. We might raise 5s and 3s at some frequency. We have open 7s all the time. But we switch to the the in position player. You can see that they're going to have 3s, 5, 7, 7, 5 suited, 6, 4 suited, and a hand I didn't even mention yet, which is 5, 3 suited at this stack depth. So yeah, they have an advantage here. 7.6% 2-pair plus versus 3.3 for us, which is, those two things together are often going to suggest that we go for a check in this situation. Okay, so this is what in positions strategy looks like, and a decent amount of betting, and just simply because they have a lot of those strong hands, they can get a decent number of hands to fold in this spot. So you can see like ace 10, ace jack without a diamond, king queen without a diamond. Basically these offsuit Broadway hands without a diamond just have to fold in this spot, and then these Broadways without the diamonds, so spades, hearts, and clubs, will just start to fold as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot to get to fold straight away, but it goes check check, and the turn was the 5 of clubs, and there's still no betting, so it looks like we played the hand fine right now, but we do start to put some money in interestingly with ace king. We do check aces again, we do check kings sometimes, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s as well. I guess that if we are always betting these pairs on the turn, then we don't. What do we get to value bet on the river? A7 sometimes checks, but we're it's pretty thin. Like we probably just don't have enough to be able to value bet. So we checked, and our opponent checks, and the river was the 3 of hearts. So can we bet now? Not really. There's a bit of betting going on. Looks like 3/4 pot, 550 into 7-3-4, 14% of the time, but mainly just going for a check. But yeah, look at these. So this is what I was talking about, like queen high and jack high getting ace highs to fold. Going for the big bet, which is I think that's 1.75x pot. So then you can see that a ton of ace highs now start folding. Ace queen and ace jack are made to be indifferent. If we look at strategy and EV, you can see it's probably better. Ace jack is pretty much indifferent here between calling and folding, and so that's what we'd really be trying to do. But yeah, we don't need to bet ace 9. So yeah, ended up being not very interesting with our exact hand, but I think like good to see, like we would have these hands here to be able to bluff with. Basically it's the bottom of our range now, like the lowest equity hands in this spot. But also we do have some value bets with kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s. I know one of you said we don't ever have any over pairs. I guess it comes down to like making sure that you do, otherwise you literally have nothing on this run out. And that's what what the solver is so good at, is making sure that it does have value bets or value hands to be able to bet for whatever line it happens in every river card as well. So yeah, we do have some ace 7 that we're going for a bet as well. Someone asked what we're doing with sixes. Sixes is going for this 3/4 bet on the river. Zuza on Twitch, what does the grey area in each hand cell represent? So the bigger this box is, the fewer combos there are of this hand. So there's loads, basically all the king queen suited, but not all the kings. Presumably because we would have played it differently. As you can see here on the turn, we do bet a lot of kings on the turn, which is why when we go for a check line, we only have this amount of pocket kings. But then if we look at king queen suited, it has pretty much all the king queen suited. That's him. We'll try again. Shout out to Torio VTB for the follow on Twitch. So we have all the king queen suited. So yeah, that's what it's showing you there. So like we don't have much king 7 suited here, but we do have a lot of king queen off, for example. Okay, Hattie saying surprised we don't bet more 7x for protection. Yeah, me too. But I guess it's the same thing as these overpairs, like actually checking some of them sometimes. Still going for that check raise, I guess. Let's have a look at the equities here. So when in position doesn't bet the flop, out of positions has an equity advantage slightly. But let's still have a look at trips plus. 3.6% for the out of position player, 4.6 for in position. So whilst the out of position player goes, nudges ahead slightly in equity, they're still at a disadvantage when it comes to really strong hands. And with so many chips left behind, I guess it makes sense to not want to, go too crazy with like A7, for example. Shadow on Twitch saying, I'm not that familiar with Pio and GTO solvers. Can you tell me, please, the solver worked based on the ranges you have manually set up? Yes. So I think it was Doug Polk posted something about this on Twitter last week. We talked about GTO and how, people using solvers are not playing GTO because true GTO would have like infinite bet sizes and infinite options post flop. Whereas, we're somewhat limited to obviously the ranges we put in, but also the different bet size options that we choose. So we, here we've got 4 bet size options, but true GTO would have, infinite. So we're not, nobody's playing GTO. They're playing, some players are playing close to what a solver would tell you is optimal, given the limited parameters, like the limited options we get to give it. But yeah, I put all of these ranges in. They're from Preflop Solutions, run with Monka Solver. Okay, so let's go to the last hand then of this 60 minutes at 6. It's also hand from that home game. I thought it was quite interesting. I did actually post this in the Facebook group. So definitely check that out. I think the link might have already gone up somewhere. But it's the MTT Poker School, the classroom. Search for that on Facebook if you want to join that. And I posted this and I asked for some feedback about what you would do in this spot. I just want to see if there's any more comments have come in on that. Just that's still loading, so we'll come back to it. But we open big blind calls, 6-5-8 boards. It goes check check. King of clubs on the turn. I think this is really, really interesting. It's obviously a good card for our hand. Pretty good for our check bet range, I would say, as well. But we're not thrilled to bet and get jammed on. Whereas a hand like, I don't know, King 7, King 9, King X of hearts, even just better King X, right? Are much happier in this spot. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see if this is definitely a bet. I went for it in game, but I'm really not sure. So we'll have a look. And then the 7 comes on the river, and it goes check check. And so I asked in the Facebook group, what's the worst hand you would jam for value on this river? And got some interesting feedback. I'm not sure that we want anything less than a jam. Like the smallest bet might be, I don't know, 40 or 50% pot, 50% most probably. And if we're going to bet 6.46, then why wouldn't we just bet 10.3? But some of the comments have been like, yeah, we can bet fold. It's the best. We can bet fold this hand. But the real question was, what do you think is the worst hand you can bet for value? So can you value bet a hand like King 8 in this spot? What about a set? Tell me, guys, what you think. What's the worst hand you can bet for value on this run out? Also, let me know if you think the turn is definitely a bet. Okay, Shadow on Twitch saying probably a set, pocket sevens, but I would have checked the turn, too many bad rivers. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we checked the flop, so betting sevens now. Yeah. Could be a thing. Shout out to B Purple for the follow on Twitch. Jack Rag turn bet seems good. I'm not sure I'm betting river. Set's probably the worst hand that we can jam. How many sets do you have here? You're jamming pre with most. That's a really, really good point. I'd actually run this solution at 20 bigs. I know that we started the hand with 16, but at 15 bigs, the pre-flop solutions start limping the button. And at 20 bigs, they actually still have some min raises. So, yeah, I didn't. I mean, the best way to probably run this pre-flop is with simple pre-flop hold'em. The reason why I still had a min raising range here rather than just going for that limp strategy is the fact that there's only half a big blind in the middle in antes because there's only 4 players left in the tournament. So jamming here is not as profitable, right? Because we pick up 1.98 bigs as opposed to 2.5 whatever. But yeah, so it's a very good point that maybe we don't have sets. But if we have the 20 big blind ranges, then we have some for sure. But yeah, it's good. It's good. Very good point. Shadow BV is pocket sevens a shove here on the river. We'll have a look in a minute. Oh, pre-flop. I think I don't think so. I would with 15 big blinds, it's more so than 20. So 20, I would be more inclined to raise call, but I think with 15 we can go for more of a jam. Although at 15 I think there's a decent amount of limping. It just depends on what strategy you want to go for, right? So I've seen some 15 big blind strategies that are just limp and jam, and then I've seen some that are limp, min raise and jam. So the strategies are gonna change somewhat. Okay, so we've got ace king maybe is the worst hand we go for value on this river. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so the first thing I did is allow out of position to have some leads, just because I knew it was going to be a board that would have some leads, and I wanted to show you guys what that leading range looks like. So you can see that actually out of position can jam 3x pot with a hand like king 8. Which is something that I would say population's not doing. But if you've used any kind of like post-flop solver off shallow stack depths, some sort of app, and I'm not affiliated to any app, but if there's some sort of like GTO app that you use, you're going to see some donk jamming this stack depth. So yeah, I think it's good to see that there is some 8x jamming here, 8x down here as well. For almost 3x pot. That isn't what happened. Now, based on what some of you have said, like ace king jams pre, like as I said before, this is 20 big blind opening ranges. These are we had 16 bigs and there was only half a big blind in antes. So these range, like as I said before, we probably want to run this in simple free flop to get the proper range. But these are the ranges that I went for, like 20 big blind button open and big blind defense. So yeah, I mean, even like the big blind defense is going to be different, right? Because there's only half a big blind in ante as opposed to there being a full big blind in antes, which is how the solvers were run. That was a really loud firework outside. I'm not sure if you guys could hear that. That was, I feel like I'm in a war zone. Okay, so let's have a look. So yeah, I think this is consistent with how I would play, like betting over pairs, doing a bit of checking with aces and kings, and then just doing a great deal of checking with a lot of hands, betting 8x very frequently. Shout out to Rover though for the follow on Twitch. So yeah, betting 8x, betting over pairs, and then betting a bit of sort of everything else, but a lot of checking. I think there's probably a tendency to check too much here, like knowing that it's a board that you're supposed to do a lot of checking on, and really just going, okay, I bet my over pairs and I bet 8x, and then check everything else. Like I think that's going to be too much, as you can see. But yeah, you can see there's a lot of checking. With these big cards up here, I think it's really good to see. I mean, there's going to be a lot of combos of these hands that you end up bet folding to a raise or to a check jam. So you don't want to be betting too much of them. That's why there's a lot of checking going on. We've got some 7x straight draws that we don't want to. I think a lot of time you might think, okay, we can bet call these, but actually it wants to go for a check. 6x looks to be a lot of checking going on here. D6X are 2-pair, or a straight draw, pair and a straight draw. So I think this is really good to see. So we did check back, and the turn was the king of clubs. Out of position has some leads here. Probably too many bet sizes here. They did check, and we still continue to a decent amount of checking. So let's have a quick look to see how this turn compares to a lot of the other ones, right? So you can see that this is imposition's equity, and everything is in favor of the imposition player, right? So you might think, okay, well, we just get to bet because like our equity is like reasonable here, 55%. But relatively speaking, it's like somewhere in the middle, right, of all of this. Maybe even somewhat near the bottom. 51, 53 is towards the bottom, and then you get 55 and 56, and then out the top is like, well, 60, and 60 here with a 10 and an ace, 62 with an 8, and then 64 with a 5 and a 6. So, I think... it'd be interesting to see whether we do bet more frequently on those cards. I would say probably. Let's see. Have a look at an 8. It's not like as obvious. Like, okay, highest equity hands, we go for a bet. So a 5 and a 6, we're still doing a decent amount of checking there. I guess on a 5 and a 6, and if the out of position player is not leading, then what does he really have? I guess it's a very high frequency lead as well for the out of position player. Let's just confirm that. It's quite a lot of leading on these low cards, so I think that's a reasonable assumption. So we're doing a decent amount of checking anyway. King X going for a bet most frequently, but if you look at our hand, King 10 off is actually going for a check. Which is pretty interesting. So, it's betting these better King X more for value. We get more value from weaker King X hands in our opponent's range. But I guess like when we bet King 10, we're going to lose to King Jack and King Queen. We're going to lose to hands better than that as well. And also, if we literally just go ahead and bet all of our King X on this turn, when we check, we can basically just say to our opponent, right, just jam any river because well, maybe not any river, but jam a lot of rivers because we're massively capped going into the river. Shout out to Vladimir on Twitch. Thanks to Jerry as well for a follow on Twitch. So we need to have some King X to be able to call river. So King 10 is in there, but wow, you guys hear that outside? Literally, it feels like it might be right outside the window. Wow. Okay, we'll try and carry on. So King 9's betting more than King 10 because it has more equity and feels better about probably bet calling because you can improve. You can improve on a 7. Let's have a look at equities. So King 9 just has 83, 84, whereas King 10 has 81. It's going for a check back. So pretty interesting to see. Some checking back going ahead or happening here as well with King Queen, King Jack, King 4 and King 3. Doesn't really have much going on. I mean, King 4 does have straight draw, but not a lot going on. King 5 and King 6, 2-pair, and then pair plus a draw, and then we start to see some checks again with King 10. So pretty interesting. If we look at this, like we bet and then we get jammed on, we actually start to fold King 10 off and a little bit of folding with King Jack off. So I think that is pretty interesting to see that we do have some bet folds in this spot. And if we bet all of our King X hands here and then end up folding some of them, well, we've ended up bet folding way too frequently. So I think that's really interesting. I don't know what you guys think about that. 7 of diamonds on the river. He doesn't do too much leading here. He checks. And then, the worst hand that we bet for value, can we jam a set? So we can jam 8s and 6s, but we can't jam 5s. And then 2-pair we can't bet. So we can jam all of our straights, obviously, for value here. but only 8s and 6s, can't jam 5s. And then once we get down to 2 pair and under, we just have to check back even like aces and all of our top pair and under pairs and second pair and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's pretty fascinating. I think that we really only get to bet straights and sets, and set 5s doesn't get to do it. We do land on the river with a huge amount of straights with this line, which is great. But recognizing that we, once it gets down to 2 pair, we can't go for a jam. Let's have a look and see what he's supposed to call with on this river. So looks like he's calling with all straights. All straights. He doesn't have any sets. Some 2 pair starts folding. I wonder if one of you just asked why can't we jam pocket 5s, set of 5s here. I wonder if it's anything to do with some of the hands we're trying to target to call, which is king 5, but also potentially blocking some hands that fold. So yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest. Let's go down to like here. All the 5x going to start folding now. 6x calls a little bit, but I think that's questionable. I don't think many players are calling a 6 here. I don't know about you guys, but I'm probably not calling a 6 on this run out. 7 folds all the time. Ace highs fold all the time. And then a decent amount of top pairs as well. So I guess when you look at a hand like king 10, for example, and I think most of you worked out that you don't want to jam that on the end. Is it the kind of hands you're going to get value from? Well, they all start folding, right? There's very few hands within here, because king 9 is a straight, king 8's 2 pair, king 7 2 pair, king 6, king 5's 2 pair, king 4's 2 pair. So what is there left? Is this big gap of hands that you would ordinarily be trying to get value from, but all of those are better than your hands. So you'd suddenly be turning your hand into a bluff, trying to get those hands to fold. So yeah, I don't think that's something that we want to do. But yeah, I think that's really, really interesting. I'm still trying to think about why we don't get to bet pocket 5s on the end here. I mean, there's a 9-5 in there, and that's a straight. Yeah, I might have to leave you guys with that. I mean, king 5. There's a decent number of king 5s here. Ship it here. Thanks for the follow on Twitch. Decent amount of king 5s, so maybe like blocking his calling range is not good. You can see a lot more king 5 than like king 6 or king 7. So maybe that's something to do with it, blocking their calling range, which is not good. Whereas when we jam like 7s, we don't block a big chunk of 2 pair hands that can call. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, I think. So some big takeaways here. Yeah, not betting the turn, and then definitely going for a check back on the river, and only being able to jam 6s plus, and not being able to jam 2 pair, which is yeah, really good to know. Cool. Okay, well that's going to wrap things up, guys. If you guys have any other questions now, maybe you've got some questions about Game Changer or private coaching, just let me know. Few plugs again just at the end. If you haven't done so already, hit that follow button on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, or even if you're watching on Twitch, go over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified next time we go live. I will be back on Sunday, 10 a.m. UK time for off-peak Sunday session. Shout out to Toto Pascal for the follow on Twitch. Yeah, I said I was going to do a plug for YouTube and Twitch, which is what we've already done. Let's go through to mttpokerschool.com is the website. If you want to know more about Game Changer, which is my weekly coaching webinars and group, then go to mttpokerschool.com/Game Changer. Yeah, but everything should just be on the MTT Poker School website. So mttpokerschool.com is where you'll find everything from the weekly webinars to private coaching to all of the good stuff, and then all of our social media stuff like Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all of that. Okay, Shibba here says, how much is private coaching? If you go onto the website, there's an option to apply for coaching, and if you follow that process, then I can talk to you more about that off stream. Okay, Sam's on the grind. Thought I'd check in. How's the study stream gone? I think it's really good. I think went into quite a lot of detail. I think we've gone to more than 60 minutes at 6, but which is good. And Sam, is there a firework display on outside? Yes, it probably sounds like I'm in a war zone. Shadow saying, will you do more streams like this in the future? Yeah, so every Tuesday and Thursday is the plan, certainly for November. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, my plan is the whole of November we're going to do every Tuesday, every Thursday, 6 o'clock, 60 at 6, so 60 minutes at 6 for some reviews like this. And I'm going to try and get most of the material from the Sunday streams, so I probably won't include 2 of the home game hands next time. But yeah, so definitely check out the stream, check out the playing stream and the study stream as well. Let's see. Mumba saying, thank you for a great session. You're welcome. Hattie, GG, Gaz, good work. Thank you. Appreciate that, Hattie. Thanks for being here. Zuzet, thanks for the sesh, buddy. Really enjoyed it. Excellent stuff. This is really good feedback. Benjamin, thanks, Gareth. That was awesome. Glad I made it this time around. Yeah, I know you missed it last time. So going to be here. I think there's a schedule on Twitch. So 6 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. UK time for the live play stream. And that's going to be it, guys. So take care. Have a great bonfire night, if you know what it is. If you're in a country that celebrates bonfire night and fireworks and stuff like that. And I'll see you on Sunday. Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye.